PrusaSlicer 2.6 is finally in public alpha. And you know that means we have to talk about it. There's a lot of awesome changes here. And yes, that includes your free-range, vegan, and organic supports. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are as absolutely excited as I am for PrusaSlicer 2.6, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed. Links are, of course, in that description down below for the current alpha, which is Alpha 3. We are taking a look at the changelogs for Alpha 2 because Alpha 3 was a bit of a quick bug fix. There's not a lot different there. The big changes are with Alpha 2, and the biggest one that most people are going to love is organic supports. Those that have enjoyed Cura or Bamboo Studio for a while have been enjoying tree supports. Prusa's implementation is called organic supports. And yes, I will continue to make free-range, vegan, organic jokes as often as I possibly can because I think it's hilarious. And I would love to see what a vegan support looks like. This is what organic looks like. What does one with GMOs look like? Let me know what you guys think in those comments. But it is an Ultimaker poll with Thomas Rom, who has heavily invested into improving the tree supports from Cura. The supports are very easy to remove and reduce the print time and material usage considerably. Those of you who have ever dealt with regular supports just getting knocked around and been a problem, tree supports might be the thing for you. I have completely avoided them, as I had moved away from Cura well before they became a thing. But now that it's in the slicer that I use constantly, organic supports have been my go-to. In fact, you've seen a few time lapses where we've utilized organic supports, with the big one being the Zoidberg that we did, and it came out wonderfully. The supports just break right away without any extra necessity for tools and other garbage that I would normally be using with my regular snug supports. But should I want the old school method, it is absolutely still available. And we can see here that grid supports use 67 grams and take 397 minutes. Snug supports use 61 grams and takes 366. And organic uses 56.2 and takes 301. So we're seeing an overall reduction in print time by north of 20%. That is amazing, and I can absolutely corroborate that evidence. We are seeing considerably faster print speeds, and we're doing things that we necessarily would not have done, like printing benchies at angles. Why? Simply because we can. And it's a fun way to show off organic supports as long as they don't break when you're pulling them off the build plate. Been there, done that. And as we can see, these are all done with the Prusa MK3S, with the 0.2mm speed profile, and in Prusament PLA. I'm excited for this. Now, I can tell you from my experience with Bamboo Studio and utilizing their slim tree supports, I don't find them to be sufficient. So for some models with lots of overhangs, do make sure that you reduce the pillar size and how close those pillars can get, because the support might not give you the density that you're looking for, and there might be reasons to still utilize something like snug supports. But for models like this, the organic supports will do just fine. And this is noted that the organic supports do require a fair bit extra memory, so make sure you have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM, and when in doubt, you can download more RAM. It works. Trust me. And unfortunately, currently, variable layer height is not supported. When you do try to turn on variable layer height, the organic supports do completely break and it doesn't work properly. So if you're going to be doing that kind of thing, you're really stuck without the organic supports as of recording this video. That might change for the public release, because remember, this is still an alpha, which means you will still be finding bugs, you will still be finding problems, but it gives us the opportunity early to play with the equipment and brand new slicers that, to me, change the way I'm looking at 3D printing with my Prusas and looking at models that we might have previously never taken because it would have been a bear to remove the supports. And to see what organic supports look like, we've got some ready to go models for you guys. Let's get these sliced and take a look. We can see it is considerable. Now, to be clear, a Benchy does not normally need support. This is quite literally just to enjoy the organic supports. And I did have to have this little block down here to allow me to have the Benchy completely off of the build plate. This will allow us to show what the quality of those organic supports look like and how easy they are to remove. This model does not touch the build plate at all. Now, I did use a feature that we will cover a little bit later on this specific Benchy, where I let PrusaSlicer completely decide where it wanted to put supports. Now, I did add a little bit of my own. We'll see that further in, so stay tuned if that's something you're looking for. But I will say, this is really supporting on easy mode. When we look at the supports themselves, we can see that they're generally 1 to 2 walls, and they come out from this tree-like substance, but it's organic. I promise you it's organic, okay? And it actually does a pretty good job of supporting that base layer and providing some cushion around it, so that the nozzle doesn't just smack the part off the build plate in a couple of layers. I am happy with that, because I will say the first time that we did try this, it did not succeed because I did not have enough support over here where I place the supports manually rather than allowing PrusaSlicer to say, I got you, fam, don't worry about it. But it is definitely unique. And I will say this is absolutely a challenge when it comes to your retractions. So if you're using a Bowden 3D printer, be careful, because these really small bits of support material will be hundreds of retractions and can easily cause your filament to grind or work harden inside of the hot end. Just something to be aware of. Have not experienced that yet, but I've also not tried organic supports with a Bowden 3D printer. That will come in a future video though, so if that's your kind of thing, make sure you're subscribed. But the model looks great. It's a pretty easy thing to do, but as long as you have that helper square, life will be good. Moving forward, we've got the measurement tool, which to me is one of the best features that has come with this. Normally, if I wanted to measure something, I'd have to go into CAD. I'd have to try to find planes that I could grab, but no. It is so simple within PrusaSlicer. And for those of you that are working on making sure that you're printing the right part or that your tolerances are correct, you can measure all of that now, and it's awesome. Let me show you guys what it looks like. We grab the measurement tool down here, and it's reasonably self-explanatory. You can choose the first part. We're going to measure the width of the tail here. So we're going to choose an edge there. Then we're going to come all the way over here and measure that. We can see that it's 5.783 millimeters with an 88.245 degree angle. Now, I don't know if there's an easy way for me to make sure that it's a 90-degree angle specifically, but I can go ahead and copy all of this to my clipboard. We can use the escape tool to unselect the second piece and be able to choose a different line. And that's nice. And escape again goes ahead and unselects both of them. We can also grab lines themselves. We can come here and grab this line and this line, and that will tell us that it is exactly 20.000 millimeters across. We can go ahead and also measure things like how the planes are related to each other. In this model, the planes are at a 90-degree face to each other. But when we look at something that has a curve to it, we can also just click and it will give us the radius of that curve. For those of you that are working with proper fillets or wanting to make sure that my roundover is exactly the size that you're looking for, you don't have to go back to your CAD package of choice. You can do it right from the slicer. This makes measuring inside of your printing so much easier. And if you are trying to do things like pins and pegs that fit into each other, that's a huge feature. But it's not even something that you have to work for anymore, because they now have cutting built in that can add pins for you. There's been some awesome implementations of the cut tool, just like I'm going to cut to tell you about our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. I want to thank you guys for your continued support with 3D Musketeers. Those of you that have outsourced your 3D prints to us, those of you that have had us do 3D scans for you, and those of you that have requested that I come out and speak at your events, I am incredibly grateful for the support that you all have provided to us. Don't forget, if you are looking to get help with your 3D printing, as well as 3D scanning, CAD design, and all those other things, you can reach out to us over at 3D Musketeers. We utilize Prusa 3D printers, our Tech 3D scanners. That's how you know things are just going to work well every single time. We have some of the best designers on the planet. I am so excited for the things that are coming this year, and I hope that you guys will like and subscribe, and hey, share the videos if that's something that you'd like. But if you would like to support us financially, you can do so by kicking a couple of bucks into that creator fund by joining YouTube channel members or Patreon, both of which are linked in that description down below, where you will get to see sneak peeks, files before we release them to the public, as well as lots of behind the scenes content from these videos, things like the cat being a complete pain in my butt, things like the rings that I have designed for Jesse spools from Printed Solid that allow you to use them in your bamboo. So if you're like me and prefer to buy your filament from USA companies, you can get it from one of the best ones out there and still be able to use it inside of your bamboo. But we do greatly appreciate anything that you guys can do to help us out. Our goal this year is 100,000 subscribers, and it will take a village to have us get there, but I'm glad that you all are standing right behind us. Thank you for what you all do in making this channel possible. I am grateful for all of it. But anyways, back to the cutting tool. Looking at the cat here, we can go ahead and draw a line on the cat, and that will give us our cut plane. So if we wanted to do it, maybe say back here, boom, cut plane. Maybe here, cut plane. Nice and simple. And if that's not exactly where you want it to be, you can go ahead and modify how you move it, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. And it will show you what that looks like in terms of that movement process. We're gonna leave it right there. And by default, the upper part will naturally be placed on the bed. We're gonna do the same thing for the lower part. It's gonna place it on the cut. We're gonna go ahead and perform that cut, and you'll see that the parts have now auto-oriented themselves so that their cut surfaces are on the build plate. But let's say I want to go ahead and scale it for some reason, but I only wanted to scale the bottom. PrusaSlicer is not going to let you do that because you have to scale the model together. And I like that because if I want to cut something up for printing purposes, but then realize I need to make it even a little bit bigger, I might have to undo all of the work that I've done. Now with PrusaSlicer, it remembers that stuff. So you can change the scale. But, and I will note, it does not update the scale down here. Maybe that will get fixed before PrusaSlicer 2.6 goes out to full public release. Again, we're still looking at an alpha here. The text embossing tool is been something that when I first saw it, it kind of blew my mind because this is really tough to do in a CAD package. Like doing this inside of Fusion 360 is really tough for me. And I have a way that I've done it, but it's really janky and it doesn't look very good. And yet this makes it so much easier. This one, as I've prepared earlier, already has some stuff written on it. You can see that it is a cat, and I've written Victoria on the back. Now, the thing that is unique here is that it is placed on the face. So the text will curve and follow the face of the model. And see, if you've ever done this before in a CAD package, you know that is incredibly complicated because what it will normally do is just make everything come out a certain distance from where the lettering is. Not with PrusaSlicer. It makes it the certain distance from where the surface of the model is, which is incredibly amazing. I love that. And you can write whatever you want in whatever font you might have installed. This is Font, which is an open source font designed for 3D printing and laser cutting. It's actually one of the fonts that we use for 3D Musketeers. And that's it. It is now so much easier for me to add embossed or debossed text. I can move it to where I want it, rotate it onto my model, just like that, and I can write whatever I would like. Then I can adjust anything that I want inside of PrusaSlicer. Things like the depth, that is technically the height of it from the surface. 2 is more than enough. The height is the physical height of the letters, so that is set to 9 millimeters. We can do things like adjust the kerning, although kerning as it stands is okay. And we can even change the font. I like Font. We can also add skew. That will give you your italicizing if that's what you're looking for. You can add boldness, only to fonts that support it. Font doesn't, so you know, that's a thing. And then of course, line gap if you are working with multiple lines of text. But then we can go to subtracted and we'll use the surface. So now this is in the model itself. Let's take a look. And just like that, we've added embossed text. And if I wanted to quickly change it, I just gotta double click on the text itself, edit, come here and change it from subtracted to added. And just like that, not only do we have a subscribe, but we have a cat. And that is incredibly valuable for those times where you want to add something to the part without going back into CAD to making those changes. Now, I will say things like logos and all that are not fully available. This is just for text, but it can be wrapped around surfaces as well. And we can see here that you're able to not only wrap around the part itself, but you can also have the text face you directly. You know those people that will do the models that look like words from one side and words from the other? This literally allows you to do that inside of PrusaSlicer without any extra work. You're welcome. But it also lets you do things like wrap messages around objects. Now, what I have found is it's not the most reliable on small surfaces like this. And that's because the surface is looking at the camera. So if I look over here and say set text to face camera, the text is now facing the camera. And that will be wherever the camera happens to be. And while that can be valuable, I have a feeling that specific feature might be more complicated for others. While I do feel that there is some value to this, that whole face toward camera can definitely get confusing very, very quickly, especially when you put it there and face toward the camera. Definitely creates some trippy perspective things, which I fully expect some of you all to be taking advantage of. To go further, support painting has gotten a lot easier. You don't have to use the show me the overhang feature anymore. You can actually get Joe Prusa's help directly. Let's take a look. We've got this benchy. We are going to go ahead and just click automatic painting. That will just define whatever it feels as though the painting should be. Now, personally, I would like to connect that stuff, but we're going to slice this one versus the one that I did, and we can see the differences in it. We definitely have some differences in the support material. Like, I really don't see a reason to be supporting the letters, but if you are starting out with supports, this is easy mode. Personally, I like to custom paint it a little bit, but having PrusaSlicer automatically custom paint something for you can move miles in terms of work from you. Let's look at a more complicated example. Something here like Mint's Chinese dragon was done almost completely by PrusaSlicer. The only thing I did was come in here and just add a little bit more where I thought was necessary. Otherwise, PrusaSlicer made all of those little marks that you see. Let's get it sliced up and see what it looks like. Takes a while. It's not a fast process. And there you go. It does take a lot of the work out. Now, I do believe some fine tuning is needed. When we remove the support material, we can see that honestly, some of this, these little dots, yeah, you might want them, but you also might just send it and deal with the rough overhang. But I will say, if you are new to support material, this does make life a whole lot easier for you. Is it necessary? No, but I think it is incredibly valuable as you're learning in this journey of 3D printing, because supports are one of those things that are really tricky, and the let us just do it based on overhang angle is not generally the right way to do it. This automatic painting feature gets a little bit closer to what I might like, and that means that 3D printing starts to become closer just to click, print, done, which I am really, really excited about. We also now have settings for dynamic overhang speed and extra overhangs. I am loving dynamic overhang speed because that can certainly reduce the amount of support material needed, as it will slow things down as your parts get more and more overhung, and you could even have it avoid crossing curled overhangs. As you print, and especially if you're going to print overhangs without any supports at all, you might find that they curl up a little bit. Without the right amount of Z-hop, this can cause a collision. That collision can generally cause your printer to skip steps or completely break the model off the build plate. Both of those, bad news bears. We don't want that. By having dynamic overhang speed, we can look at adjusting the speed based on where everything is on the overhang process. Extra perimeters on overhangs means it's no longer just lines. We actually have connected lines that act like perimeters rather than infill, which to me is valuable. Something that I've enjoyed out of Bamboo Studio that does seem to work pretty well, and I'm glad that Prusa is implementing it, although I don't see that it was pulled directly from Bamboo. Let's see what those options look like. We can see under speed that I've been messing with this. These are the settings that I've actually been using for print settings. So far, it's worked okay, but this is all going to be something that you have to work yourself into. From the factory, the speeds are a little bit faster, but I would rather have a little bit too slow speed than too fast, because if it's too fast, it will start to curl on you. Inside of layers and perimeters, we can see that we can add in the avoid crossing curled overhangs and extra perimeters on overhangs as well. So when we slice the part, it's gonna look a little bit different. It is nothing but straight perimeters. Personally, I find this to release support way easier, but I'm gonna have to mess around with it a little bit here in PrusaSlicer. It's not what we're used to, where there are infill lines that will then do the bridging. This is all at perimeter speed rather than infill speed. And speed is a big deal when you're looking at overhangs. Now, if you are gonna be doing something like soluble support material, this is exactly the way that you wanna do it. It ensures that your lines are properly connected together. And the movement feature, well, that one we would just have to turn on movement to see. And there is, well, a lot of travel in this little print. We can see that it is actively avoiding areas that could curl up when it comes to the movement, at least where it can. And again, these are all experimental, so as the alpha carries on and as it goes into beta, this will likely get refined. So mess around with it and make sure that you post anything that you find, because ultimately, the more bugs that we can find, the faster this thing gets out into release candidate and then eventually into a real full-blown product that we can utilize as end consumers. And if it is your kind of thing, you can download directly from printables that will open directly inside of PrusaSlicer. For me, probably not going to use that one too much. At least not for right now. We've also got template filaments, monotonic top and bottom fill patterns, and experimental tree-like supports for SLA. I like the monotonic lines. It is something that I have to get used to and learn a little bit more about, where it's not a solid line, it is a segment of individual lines that should result in a better overall extrusion without dealing with over extrusion that can happen sometimes with 3D printers when they're doing top layers. So there is some benefit to that. But personally, the current system works just fine for me. Test it out. I'm going to test it out. Let me know what you guys think in those comments below. The templates are nice as well because it lets you use the system-defined presets on multiple machines. It is something that I have battled with for years inside of PrusaSlicer. But this is great if you are just starting because it makes utilizing profiles with the stock materials like Filament PLA so much easier. I'm happy that they finally added this because it's been a bit of a bear previously, not gonna lie. There is some things involving multi-material printing, but it is not something that I use very often. We don't have an MMU2S here, and I am struggling heavily with my Bamboo just to get it to print well, let alone start going into multicolor or multi-material. But I have been experimenting with dissimilar support materials. That is gonna be coming up in a future video, and yes, that was a bottom surface. But there is so much to love about PrusaSlicer 2.6 and so much to love about what the community is going to be doing with it. Remember, this is fully open source, so other slicers like Cura, Idea Maker, Kirimoto, and others are able to do requests to get these features and implement them directly into their slicers. And if you are on SuperSlicer, best of luck. It's going to take a little bit to implement these. I'm sure SuperSlicer normally runs a revision or two behind. But this is the goal of open source, to allow consumers to test, companies to share, and at the end of the day, everybody wins. Let me know what you guys think of PrusaSlicer 2.6 in the alpha stages in the comments down below. I have been heavily enjoying it. I am loving these organic supports. And while I haven't really had a lot of physical uses for the cut and pin feature, I'm sure I will in the future, because that removes so much extra work that we would be doing inside of the actual design software. This is amazing to me, and I'm incredibly excited to see this come to the 3D printing industry natively and not require you to learn a CAD package. That is really lowering the barrier to entry, which means we get more people enjoying and experiencing this community for what it is and not some of the frustrations that it inherently provides with it. That's all I have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. The cat's there, so I gotta be really quiet. Can't you just go to sleep like you were for 4 hours when I was yelling at video games yesterday? Please? All right. I clapped. I did it. I clapped and she got mad. Every time I clap, this cat is like associated my claps with her need to leave. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Remember, links to all that are in the description down below. And thank you all for what you do, making this channel possible. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I greatly appreciate it. Right below me will be my look at PrusaSlicer 2.5, so you can see how things have heavily changed since then. And right next to that will be our printer maintenance series, so you can get your printers running well. So when this thing goes fully public, you're going to be able to enjoy all the brand new fun features. I will see you all down in those comments and in the next one. Take care.